All right, joining me right now to discuss further, Democratic strategist and CNN political commentator Hillary Rosen, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and CNN political analyst David Drucker, and former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst Shan Wu. Good to see all of you.
Hey, Fred.
All right, so Shan, you first. Is it an issue of you cannot indict a sitting president, or is it you cannot prosecute a sitting president?
I really think it's both. I mean, I agree there's nothing in the law that prohibits indicting and prosecuting him, but it is the Justice Department's policy not to do that. I think with good reason. I mean, that immediately creates a constitutional crisis. And I don't think this is some people have been speculating, what if the president murdered somebody? I mean, it's not the scenario we're facing here. It's appropriately in the political realm, there would be an impeachment, articles of impeachment, and then perhaps an impeachment trial. But I do think that in terms of the level of proof here, there is probable cause, and this is an accusation by the Justice Department that he's committed these two felonies. It's an outright accusation.
Well, we'll listen to what Senator Rand Paul had to say about the special counsel's probe.
I'm absolutely against it. I think it's a miscarriage of justice, and we should not have special prosecutors going after one person. And if we get this way, and if we're going to prosecute people and put them in jail for campaign finance violations, we're going to become a banana republic, where they have every president gets prosecuted and everybody gets thrown in jail when they're done with office.
So, David, your reaction? I mean, is the inference that one person is being pursued here?
Well, look, I mean, I think the president has been a target of the special counsel, and they've been trying to figure out if he had any role in misdeeds and in collusion and other matters. But I don't think it's a case where the special counsel itself lends itself to a banana republic in the fact that we might end up just in a legal circus with everybody in office. I mean, a lot of people run for president. Not a lot of them end up with FEC violations. Some do. They're very minor. They pay a fine, they deal with it, and it's over. So I think what Rand Paul is doing here is trying to defend the president and speak on his behalf and suggest that anything that the special counsel might do that ropes in President Trump would be illegitimate, and that's understandable from a political standpoint. Look, supporters of the president are trying to deal with a new political reality, and that is you're going to have a Democratic House with Democratic chairmen, and impeachment, which is a political mechanism designed to deal with legal misdeeds, is entirely a political judgment. And Democrats are going to have to decide, once Mueller issues his report, whether or not they believe the offenses, if there are any, are impeachable, and then whether or not they believe it is politically feasible and politically advantageous for them to go about impeaching the president, because all of these have different scales and there are different levels of what the answer is. It's not cut and dry.
So Hillary, former Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel, says it would not be advisable, in his view, if the first order of business for a democratically, controlled House would be impeachment proceedings. What do you think about whether it should be the first order of business, or if it should come potentially after Mueller's report?
I think we've already heard Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler, the two people who are going to have the most say in this decision, say that isn't the first order of business, but that inquiries into behavior are. And, I think it's worth stepping back for a minute. There have been debates all weekend about the implications of the Mueller report, but it is worth stepping back and looking at what people would do, what people would be saying on the other side of the aisle if, in fact, this were Hillary Clinton who were president, or if this were Barack Obama or Bill Clinton who were president, our last two Democratic presidents. Bill Clinton was impeached by a Republican House for lying about having sex, period. We're talking now about a charge from the Justice Department that the president actually subverted the FEC laws as a way to assure his election as president. There's a huge difference here. And so I think there is going to be an increasing amount of cry from Americans generally to take the Mueller report and the Mueller findings seriously as they keep coming down the pike. I think it's premature to make a decision about the outcome, but I think we have seen from these first few sentencing documents that this is an inquiry that is bearing real offenses by the president and his cronies.
Okay, then there was this notable moment during former FBI Director James Comey's testimony that came out in transcripts. When Comey was asked a question about being fired as FBI Director, an FBI lawyer actually stepped in and then said this, I'm quoting now, "Mr. Chairman, to the extent that question goes to the special counsel's investigation into obstruction, the witness will not be able to answer." So, Shan, what's going on here in terms of the parameters of the questions during that closed-door meeting?
I think it would be a mistake to read too much into that, but it's certainly fair to read into that what we already know. I mean, there's no question the special counsel is looking at the obstruction question. I don't know that FBI's lawyer's sort of proactive statement there means that they're very far down that road. I mean, it makes sense they would not want Comey to be answering in a transcript that's going to go public what his views are, because he's going to be a witness again. He's already been a witness. But I think there's no question there's an obstruction possibility going on here. They're looking at it. I think there's a lot of danger for the president on the obstruction issue. I think particularly he's got a situation where he's already submitted answers in writing. They are quite likely to be contradicted by what Cohen's evidence is. And even worse for him, under that very unusual joint defense agreement, it's possible that the alleged falsehoods by Manafort actually conform to inaccuracies in Trump's written statements, which would be a big problem. It's like finding two people cheating on exams with the same wrong answers.
And so, David, how concerned should the president be? I mean, yesterday when he was about to, head to Philadelphia for the Army-Navy game, he said he's happy with what we've been reading, and he says, it's turning around nicely. Does he mean that?
Right. I don't think the president means that. I think if the president was very satisfied with how this was playing out, I think he would lay off, let the investigation work its will, and approach this from a position of confidence, and at least let supporters of his deal with some of the political battles that always exist around a special counsel investigation. I think the president is concerned because these are really political matters, even when you're dealing with a legal investigation, that politically he's going to end up in a really tough spot heading into his 2020 reelection. And I think that's why he is trying to shape public opinion and shape the opinion of the Mueller report before it has ever been issued. I think that's one of the reasons why most of the major leaks on what Mueller is doing have come from the president's team in an effort to litigate these things, so that by the time Mueller issues his report, people will already be looking the other way, because with this president, there's one sort of issue or scandal or whatever word you want to use, all on top of another until it all runs together, and none of them really ever gets a full airing. And I think that's the way the president likes it.
Shaping public opinion and perhaps even trying to change the subject, Hillary, with yesterday's kind of spontaneous announcement that his chief of staff was, would be heading out later on this year, when reportedly a more formal announcement was going to be made tomorrow, Monday.
Yeah, well, I mean, in fairness to these announcements, they tend to happen when reporters are catching him on the fly and he doesn't have a talking point. He's just telling the truth, which is, a miracle for him. But I think that it is important to realize, though, that part of the president's PR game in this is to try and delegitimize the entire inquiry, so that when the House Democrats do take over and do start holding hearings, demanding documents, which we know the administration is going to be resistant to hand over, demanding witnesses to the table, that they can set this up as, their own version of kind of a political inquiry, a political witch hunt. And that's why I think you're going to find Democrats be very fact-based, very low emotion, but very methodical in how they start to investigate this administration.
All right, we'll leave it there for now, everyone. Hillary Rosen, David Drucker, Shan Wu, good to see you all. Thank you.